Tēnā koe aku hoa maminga katoa. Hello and welcome along to episode 5, or Rima, of the Joy of Yarn podcast. I'm James, I'm your host, and also gracing us with her presence today is none other than the ginger goddess, Miss Jaffa the cat. She decided to pop in and say hi too. Now in today's episode, we're going to see what's been off my needles, what's on my needles, and a roundup of all the things I did at Creative Fibre's event, which was held just recently, the Festival of Fibres, held at Te Raupraha Arena in Porirua, just north of Wellington. Welcome back. And as it was Sign Language Week here in New Zealand just last week, I should say kia ora. Well, that's what I was taught to do for kia ora last week in our lessons. And also, currently this month, it's New Zealand Music Month. And as an interesting little nod to that from my garden, I have here a little rose. I'll bring it a little bit closer so you can actually see it better. This rose here is the Hayley Westenra rose. And Hayley Westenra is a famous New Zealand singer, sort of like the pop opera genre, or she was until she gave that away. She's a bit of a singer-songwriter now, but has been fairly quiet actually. Look forward to see what's coming on. That rose was brought out with the assistance of UNICEF. It was a fundraiser, so all the roses that were sold, money went to UNICEF because Hayley is a UNICEF ambassador, has done lots of work for them in the charity side of things. Right, now I have been knitting since we last met up here on the red couch, and there are a couple of things off my needles. So, last time I was showing you the socks. Now, this was a Christmas Club yarn from Morag of Vintage Pearls, and I decided to do the Jaywalker sock pattern. So this is what it looks like knitted up here. Now, this is quite great. So there were two 100 gram skeins of yarn in the kit, and it was, I decided I wanted to use both colorways in the same sock. But then because you've got 100 grams, it's enough for 2 pairs of socks. So I decided on doing Jaywalker because it shows the pattern. It's a really nice little chevron. And I just did 8 rounds of the main colour, which was the blue, and then just 2 rounds of the contrast colour, which had more of the pinks blending through. And I did that because I like playing with colour, and I also wanted to see what the reverse would be. So the second pair that I made, voila, look like this. Similar but different. So here we've got the contrast being with the solid colour of the blue, started off with, and it blended a lot more with this, so you can't tell quite so much. But there were 8 rounds of the multicoloured yarn and then only 2 rounds of the blue. But they merged a bit more. But it's the same pattern using the same 2 colours, but it was just to see how different they could look. And they do look quite different. But I was quite happy with that because with the Jaywalker, you create this beautiful chevron pattern which goes up and down, so it's not just a plain straight round. But the knitting of it itself is really quite simple. It's a free pattern on Ravelry by a designer called Rima. It's been around for quite some time now, probably about 15 years the pattern's been around. And yeah, so I've done it a few times and it just seemed quite right. And if I show you a close-up there of the heel looked quite lovely too with the multicolour. And that's just a simple short row heel that I did on there. I'm quite, I don't know, boring in terms of I do the same heel all the time with my socks. I need to try doing a few different heels for some variety, I think. But that was the big thing that went off the needles. And what I might possibly do is, they might end up being birthday presents for cousins of mine. And the way you achieve this effect, you can see how it's created ridges. I use it on double pointed needles, and it's a bit like how a lot of European knitters will do. They actually use 5 double pointed needles. So the stitches are on 4 of the needles evenly distributed, and you've got the 5th one to knit around with. And what you're doing basically is that on one round you're knitting it plain, and on the next one you're actually increasing as you go along, and then you decrease in the center and increase again. And when you're going top down, it's just creating this beautiful shape as it goes through. It's a bit of a different texture, but a lot of fun. So that was the big thing I've been working on, and I was actually really quite glad to get those done, because that was over a month's worth of knitting for me when I was doing other sorts of bits and pieces. And I was knitting to a deadline, which I missed because one cousin's already had her birthday. So I'll have to, I don't know, add some chocolate into the gift or something like that. So it doesn't seem quite so bad that the gift is late, but not to worry, it's done. And what I was quite interested to try and work out is that how much yarn would I have, because the Jaywalker pattern can use up a little bit more yarn than normal because you've got more stitches on there. I did the 2 pairs of socks, and I've got my little memory project here as well, and I managed to get in the little rectangle for the blue and then for the multi. And I had just a smidgen left over of each. So that was the multicolour ball. So it's about 2 grams left over. So I was playing yarn chicken at one point because I had done the little rectangle on here after I'd done one of the pair of socks, not the second one. So I was really worried that I wouldn't have enough yarn to complete the second pair, but I did squeak through with similar amounts of yarn. So that was, yeah, one of the Christmas yarn clubs that Morag had done from Vintage Pearls last Christmas. So I feel kind of good too that I bought something that went in the stash, but I've pulled out of the stash and I've knitted up. And I'll probably use the little scraps into a special mushroom, so I can say that I've totally used up that yarn, because I'm shocking for buying things and it goes into the stash and stays in the stash for a very long time. And then I keep buying at a faster rate than what I'm knitting, which is also quite bad, but fun. You know, that's how it goes. So apart from that, I think I got 1 pair of baby socks done. And here was me last time saying that the plan was to try and do 1 pair of baby socks every week as a charity thing. It's just that if I was going to spend time doing one of these every week, I wouldn't have had as much time on the main project. So yeah, so all I've got really finished objects since the last time we talked was the 2 pairs of socks there and this little pair of baby socks. And there's another event coming up soon on the 1st of July, which is the weekend of the 1st of July, and that's Capital Fibre Fest in Wellington and Upper Hutt. So I might be donating all the little baby socks I've done so far at that event, because they're having a charity collection there also for hand-knitted items that you can donate. So that'd be a good way to actually get these out of my hair as well and start planning for more charity projects for next year. So that's pretty much all that I've been knitting. So, on the needles, let's get started. It's my little Kath Kidson bag. Now, this is the big project I'm working on at the moment. This is my Nordic Stars scarf. And it's gotten bigger since the last time we spoke. So there's been a lot happening. So I'm really pleased with it now. I think when we showed it to you last time, I was concerned that the colour, the neutral colour, was blending too much with the yellow and the orange. So I was a little bit worried, but I knew that the chocolate brown was coming up and there'd be decent contrast with that. So what I'll do is I'll just start unravelling it so you can see how well it's going at the moment. I'll just bring that up and bring that down. So I've made a bit of progress. And yeah, in that chocolate section, it did look really good. I was really happy with the contrast there. And then back to the start. So this was using 2 yarns. One yarn is Tuku Yarns, and the other one is the Kauni yarn, Kauni, from Estonia, which has this beautiful fade or this transition going through the different colours. And because I'm doing this as double knitting, when I turn it around, you've got the neutral as the main colour in the background, and then the stars and the border are in the contrast colour. So I'm enjoying it. It takes me a little bit of concentration as I work my way through it, but that's good. Should be doing that. Double knitting, I'm quite slow. It's almost like knitting rib if you've never done double knitting before. It's not the weight of the yarn when we say double knitting, it's actually the technique. So it's stranded, it's colour work, I'm following a graph, and it's something that I made up myself from the Selbu Mittens pattern book, where I chose 4 different shapes of star, and then I found that border pattern. So I've been working through that, and the original plan was that I would have 3 repeats of the 4 stars, and at the moment I'm on 2.5 repeats of the stars, and the ball of coney, what was a bit of fluff, ran out. I had 100 grams of that ball, and I had 100 grams of the tuku yarn, so I just assumed that they would both last the same distance. And when I measured it up against another scarf in a similar technique, I worked out how long I need this to be, and it ran out. You can see there's a strong, instead of being a gradual colour change, there's quite a strong colour change there. I managed to find another ball of wool that was very, very similar to the coney, and it was a leftover. And for the life of me, I just can't work out where it came from. I can't think of what project I've used this yarn in, but I had it. It's the same texture as the coney. So I thought, well, I'll just carry on till I've got my 3 repeats of the 4 different stars, and then I'll finish it off. Lengthwise, it's getting quite good. If I keep it as a scarf, the way I normally wear my scarves is I'll fold it in half lengthways like that, and then you put it around the neck and just shove it through, and you wear it like that. So I'm getting close to the length that I could finish it off at if I wanted to. And I'll have both those yarns running out about the same time now. But I've had another thought, as I always do. I'm wondering if instead of when I get to the end of the colour sequencing and the stars, what I might be tempted to do is actually, instead of just casting off, I'll just graft the start and the end together, and I might make this a big cowl that I can wrap around my head twice. Because if it was a cowl, I could put it on like that and wrap it around again or something without strangling myself. So that's a thought that I'll do. And then, of course, then if you're going to graft it, do you graft it straight, or do you put a twist in it so that it's going to alternate so you can see both sides of it? Nothing's ever straightforward with me. I mean, this is why I don't tend to like following patterns. I like making things up like this and then playing around with how I think the best way is going to be for it to look. But anyway, I'm really loving the way it's turning out. I think here you can see how the colours have worked really, really well. So when I say I'm doing repeats of stars, that's one star shape, that's a different one, that's a different one, and that's a different one. So that's the, if I hold it there. So those are the 4 different shapes going up, and I'm repeating those 4 shapes 3 times going around, and that should give me a really good length for it. And that was just a border I found in the mitten book as well, which I'm enjoying doing. So if I do that a little bit close up. So I'm enjoying this. I feel like I'm embracing my Scandinavian ancestry and doing something special, and because I've made it up, it's kind of something unique as well. So that's all a bit of fun. So I'm hoping I'll actually get that finished in the next week or so. And once that's finished, it's almost so much fun trying to find something else to work on that you can do at night. What else am I working on here? Another project bag. Oh, right, these. I finished this one last time. So these are the cuffs that I was working on as an introduction to Fair Isle colour work, to get excited about that. And I haven't made too much progress, But what I decided to do was to do the second one, but in different colour. Well, it's the same colours, but doing the sequencing of colours completely different, just to see how different it will look with the same pattern, but the colours done in a different order or matched together differently. So yeah, just to be bizarre. I mean, who needs to have a matching pair of cuffs? Just have an alternating coloured pair. So not too much progress made on that. Once I finish the Nordic Stars scarf, I'll knuckle down and I'll get this finished and put this to one side, because this was just a fill-in little project to have some fun. And I have had fun with it, so that's really good. But I want to use my Spindrift yarn for something else, because this is Jamieson's Spindrift that I'm using. So that's kind of like what they call a 2-ply, and it's kind of like what we call a 4-ply. I need to have some of these colours, because there's another project that I need to work on, which I'll tell you about in the next episode. It's too soon to tell you about it now. There's other things to be on there about. So it's on the needles. Obviously, I'll get cracking into that once I finish the Nordic Stars scarf. As I was saying before, the plan was to knit a pair of baby socks every week. I've just got another pair stuck in here. So I had some Misty Alpaca yarn that I was just trying to use up, this beautiful little pastel coloured one. And so I've just got a bit of one started there. But what I thought I'd show you is I got this wonderful holder last year when I was at a knitting retreat. We went to the Adirondack Fibre Festival in upstate New York, and a stall was having all these little holders. So they're designed to go on your double pointed needles, so like the stoppers on the end so you don't use the stitches, and they're all these wonderful shapes, like there were butterflies and just all sorts of different shapes. And I chose these polar bear feet. Oh, you can see the so it's a lot of fun. The type of rubberized plastic, which isn't so good, but there we go. And yeah, you just put it in and your knitting is secure and it just goes away. So it's something quite cute with my knitting. Everyone likes buying a new little gadget for their knitting. So I don't know when I'll ever be back at that fibre festival, but if I do, I think I'll go back and buy some more of those sorts of stoppers, because it's a cute idea, and quite often I've got lots of things on the needles at the same time. I hate when I put them in a bag and then go to get them out again and the stitches have fallen off and there's a ladder in there, and it just gets all frustrating, and nobody likes frustrating to be associated with knitting. So that's all good. I do have one other project on the needles, but I'll talk to you about that because it's something I started in a workshop at the Creative Fibre event. Oh, what I did want to say is it's kind of on the needles still. As you can see, autumn's come here to New Zealand, and it's getting a bit cooler. I've got my long sleeve merino tops on and starting to wear some of my knitwear again. So this is an oldie. This is a K Facet Persian Poppies vest that I knitted almost 20 years ago now, actually. It's a goodie. It's served me well. It's a little bit worn. It's lost its shape. It's stretched out. There were lots of mohairs I added into this one, and so therefore they stretched a bit more than if it had just been straight wool and merinos. I was going through my drawers when I was trying to find this, and I came across this one. This is a Persian Poppies vest as well, but I never finished it. And I'd completely forgotten that I'd even started it. But you can see it, like this is green dominant. This one was like mainly red. It's got green in the background, but the reds and the pinks were quite dominant. And I was trying to think, well, when was I knitting it? And I mentioned in passing to someone, and they said, oh no, you were knitting that at such and such retreat a few years ago. And I was thinking, oh gosh, was I? And then lo and behold, in my Facebook memories, what popped up, but 4 years ago, I posted a picture of me working on this in my living room in Dunedin when I was living down there. So I'll see if I can find that photograph and pop it here. Yeah, I was working on it to use up yarn, and I've always loved the pattern, and I just wanted to do something with it. But I never finished it. I think I was trying to think about why would I have not finished? It's so close. I mean, it looks like most of the knitting is done, and it was just a matter of doing a band around there and sewing up that side seam. Straightforward, really simple. But then I kind of thought, well, where's the rest of the yarn to do that band? So I'm wondering if I ran out of the yarn for that band and I was trying to get more of it the same colour, because it would seem a bit silly if there was just a different colour band on that sleeve. And I also had a sneaking suspicion that I'd knitted this for the size that I wanted to be, not necessarily the size that I was or the size that I am now. So I had a little bit of a play with trying this on, and whereas the fabric is loose and baggy on this because it's stretched over time, this would be a somewhat tight fit on me at the moment. So, and the other thing I noticed too was the original pattern for Persian poppies came out in Kay Fassett's book Glorious Knits, or Glorious Knitting, and it showed pictures of a couple of jerseys or sweaters in the pattern, and there were some pictures of a vest, but there was no actual pattern for the vest in the book. So I just made this up as I went along. And I was doing the same thing with this, but I was not paying attention and not thinking. I must have been tight at the time, but I didn't really decrease more than a few stitches there where you start doing the armhole. And so it's meant that it's relatively wide across the shoulder. So when I did try it on, it fell off the shoulder, which I didn't like the look of. So I think this is where I've got to make a decision. I've either got to soldier on with what it is, find the yarn to do that band and sew it up, and I can wear it, or, because it's knit in two pieces, a front and a back, I've just sewn up one side seam, I could pull it undone back down to there and decrease a few more stitches and then do the shaping and go up, so it would sit more to the top of the shoulder as opposed to going over. When it goes over the shoulder, it's a bit too 1970s, early 1980s for me in terms of a style. The knitted fabric itself is beautiful though. I think the patterns worked really, really well. And I've used up lots and lots of yarns that were in the stash to achieve this. It's beautiful. I shouldn't just put it back into the drawer and forget about it again. So it's going to be a case of turning my yarn stash upside down, trying to find, have I got any more of this caramel coloured yarn to finish it off? Or if I haven't, I'll have to undo that band, undo the neck band, get another yarn and finish it off. Because now that I come to think of it, I think I've used a slightly larger needle for the V-neck as well on the rib neck band. I could have possibly done that with a smaller needle. So that might make me feel better about pulling it apart back down to there, because that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows of the poppies. Let me know what you think. What should I do? Should I pull it back and redo it, or what should I do with it? There'll be another one to catch up on next time to see if I've done anything to resolve it. I think that just about covers what's on the needles for this time. So, out and about. Well, the big event I went to at the end of last month was Creative Fibre's Festival of Fibres event. Now, Creative Fibre is an organisation here in New Zealand which is dedicated toward the craft arts, and I'm a member of it. A lot of spinners and weavers associations are affiliated to it, and you can either be a member of a local group, or like me, you can be an individual member. And because I've moved around a bit, I tend to just be an individual member. That way I can just be in touch with what's going on without really having to be attending meetings all the time or doing those sorts of things. So it suits me in the way I do things. And also too, when I was working full time, sometimes the meetings were held during the middle of the day. So it was impossible for me to get to those meetings. So as an individual member, well, when you're a member, you get a quarterly magazine. And it's a great little magazine. It just gives you an update of what's happening in different communities throughout New Zealand, any events that are coming up, just all sorts of things to do. They'll have a feature on a certain craft in the country. This latest episode also had an article on Barbara Kingsolver, the novelist, because she's also a knitter and has a farm. So it was interesting reading about her as well. So it's just a really nice, interesting magazine they send out quarterly along with your membership. And I'd forgotten that they have this event, Festival of Fibres. It's held every 2 years. And the last one was going to be held in Napier, and it was all set to go. But then they had to pull the pin on it because of COVID and everything that went crazy. Of course, the world was a very different place 2 years ago. So this year they tentatively scheduled the one, it was going to be held in Porirua, which is a city just north of Wellington, our capital city. And it was a bit of a low-key one. They didn't want to go all out and make this big thing in case something went wrong again. So I think they tried to, just dip the toe back into having an event of this scale, but not going overboard with it. So it was open to members of the society to join, and there's a registration fee, I think, of $100 to register for the event. And with the event, there were also public lectures, and some you paid to attend, some were free lectures. There is also an annual exhibition. Members can enter the exhibition, and that was on display just across the way from the main venue, which was Te Rauparaha Arena. There's a beautiful art gallery complex called Pātaka, and in one of the galleries there, they were displaying the national exhibition of all the pieces there. There were workshops, there was a traders market, there'd also been a competition with the theme of squares. So there were lots of different things that they were building into it. I registered for one of the talks, but in the end I didn't actually go to it because I was driving back and forth each day. The event was 4 days over a weekend, and on one day the road that I would take normally was closed for roadworks, and I was going to get there too late, so I took another road, and then I got there even later because there's problems on that road too. So I arrived too late for the lecture I'd registered and paid for, but that's okay. But that was fun, and then there were workshops too, and I've been to this event once or twice before, but I've never actually done any workshops, so it was really quite good that I got to do some workshops this time. So with that registration too, on the first night there was sort of like an opening address, and they also announced the winners of the national exhibition, and they held back giving us the catalogue because the winners were all printed in the catalogue. So they wanted to actually make the announcements and give out the awards prior to us getting that. Because I think if I got it here somewhere, yeah. With the registration fee, they gave us this beautiful catalogue of the exhibition itself. Now what I'll do here is I'll just slip in a video. I did a walk around of the exhibition to see all the pieces that were there. I was really quite impressed. It was a lot of fun. The gallery was completely full, and some pieces were cute and quirky, and some were like, how did that fit the category? The exhibition itself, it's competitive because there are categories for different ones you can enter for, and there's always an award for a first-time entrant as well. So it's the first time you've ever entered into the national exhibition. That's a separate category for you as well. And you can win multiple categories because there are categories for natural sheep, natural coloured wool, and there's just the weaving. There's also an embroidery one. There's all sorts of things. But anyway, here's the video clip to give you a walk around the exhibition space to have an idea of what the pieces were like this year. The main venue for the event was Te Rauparaha Arena, which is this fantastic facility in Porirua City. I used to work in Porirua, and so it's quite nice going back there in a different guise. And it's this fantastic facility that is actually a community hub which has the local swimming pool complex. There's a cafe there, the big auditorium where most of our events were. And that auditorium is also used as a sports venue, so it's got mapped out courts of basketball as well as the ever popular netball. What's really cute about, what's really nice about it is that when you walk along the main promenade through into where the auditorium is, they've got like a roll of honour for famous sports people from that area. Quite often, Porirua is looked down upon because of an area that's not as wealthy, or there's areas of need in that part of the country. So people don't expect much of the people there sometimes, which is a shame. But this is just a really good homage to the people that have done extremely well in sport from that area, and proof that success can happen anywhere, which is really quite good. So here's a couple of shots that I took around the arena itself. Workshops. I did 2 workshops. The first one was steam dyeing. Now, I wasn't quite sure what that would be. In reality, it's cooking in a slow cooker or a crock pot, as we call them as well. So that was good. That was actually held outside of the venue, and it was actually held at the back of the Pātaka complex in their craft workroom area. And so Fiona, I think it was Fiona, was our tutor. And there were, I think, about 12 of us, I suppose. And it was wonderful. We got a little introduction about using acid dyes in the powder and all the risks involved, but all the fun that's involved as well, and all sorts of tips and tricks. And the concept was that we were given 3 hanks of yarn. One was a 100-gram sock yarn, one was a 50-gram merino, and one was another sort of yarn. I think it was a 50-gram hank as well. And it was hand painting. So we got to have fun mixing up some colours and then playing around with it. And then we were given sous vide bags. First time I'd ever heard of sous vide bags was when I watched the last series of MasterChef, and they were getting quite fancy. Virtually every second thing was going into the sous vide machine to cook quickly in these bags. It's a type of slightly more rigid plastic type bag. So we were given those to, once we'd dyed our yarn, to put it in that bag, and then we laid them into the crock pots, and they were left in there to sort of like to set in. It was fun, and I mean, I used to dye yarn, so I wasn't too fussed about learning about how to use the dyes and the colour. And when you've got 12 people all at once, all trying to go up to the one table to choose colours and put things in, I knew it was going to be, I'll politely say, chaotic. So I just did mine very quickly, and it got in the way. But it was really funny because no matter how many times Fiona said, now check your time, they only got to be in for 20 minutes, and remember which one was yours. People couldn't remember which colours were theirs when they tried to get them out. They couldn't remember how long theirs had been in there for, and there was only so much capacity for the 2 crock pots, so sometimes people were standing there waiting for ages until someone finally remembered to take theirs out, they could put theirs in. And one of those funny sorts of things that happened. But on the whole, no, it was a brilliant workshop, and I did enjoy it, and I loved the space as well. My main blue one that I worked on, it was a beautiful deep blue colour that I had, but in the time of the workshop, it took up the whole time of the workshop to do the dyeing and whatever time we could get in the crock pot to try and set it in. And then I took an ice cream container with me so that I could just put the bags in there to take home, because there's no way you could dry the yarn or rinse it in the time that we had there. So when I got home that night, I then went to rinse mine out, and my blue hadn't been in the crock pot long enough to set, so a lot of the colour actually came out. So what I'll do is I'll actually just show you what I managed to get done. So this one here is my sock yarn and had shades of blue. And what I was trying to do was I was trying to get it relatively solid on one streaky bit, and then I was just doing lots of splots with an eyedropper to get a splatter effect. And it's actually worked through quite nicely, I think. I've got no idea how this will knit up. I'm not quite sure when I'm going to have the time to actually try and knit it up either, but we'll see how we go. But that was that one there. So that was fun doing that. I've got all the shades of blue. This is the one that was actually a beautiful deep navy blue when I was working on it. But now half the colour, well, I'd say 3/4 of the colour came out when I rinsed it. But this is 50 grams worth too. And the last one, quite enjoyed this one too. I think I was the only person that didn't do pink. The women were fascinated with pink and purple. So this one here again, I tried to have a solid section, and then I did a yellow base, and I had this green, bluey green, and I was doing splotches of areas just to see if I could get some kind of interesting effect when it's knitted up. But on the whole, I thought it was a 3-hour or 2.5-hour workshop, and we got 3 skeins of yarn to play with. We got the sous vide bag, we got a notebook to write down our notes, and sort of like it was a notebook that's designed for dyeing, so you're recording all sorts of things for future reference, and a book that we could use for any other dyeing that we do home as well, to keep it all in one place. That was really quite nice. So it was a really well organised class. Fiona's been dyeing for decades and knows all inside and out, and was a great resource to ask other questions as we went along. So it was a lot of fun. It was well worth doing that workshop. I really got a lot out of it, and I really enjoyed it. So now it's 3 more skeins of yarn to add to the stash to at some point knit up into Lord knows what. And my other workshop, this is the other on the needles I didn't want to show before. Oh, I should the pattern. The other workshop was, I'm going to pronounce it wrong, the Papillon or Papillon, the butterfly shawl that's really quite famous at the moment. So Joy from the Yarn Queen was doing this workshop. She's done a few herself, and it's a really popular seller, the kits through the Yarn Queen. And I thought I'd give it a go, but when I went to register for the class, they'd sold out. I thought, oh well, I was too slow, that's okay. But then somebody pulled out, so an email came out saying there was a spot available again if anybody wanted to grab it. So I grabbed it. So yeah, it's quite an intriguing pattern. And when I started reading the pattern, you need 40 stitch markers. 40. I've never knitted anything with 40 stitch markers before. And so we had a good talk about the pattern for a start. We had some samples to show which Joy had knitted up previously. And so just over half an hour of talking about everything and then getting down to knit. This was 2 hours worth of knitting. Not much progress, admittedly, but we were talking and having a good time. Met some new people there as well at the same time. I'm not convinced I'm going to keep this as it is. I think it's knitting a bit loose. I'm using, I think, was it the 3mm needle? Oh, I can't see that there. Or was it 4? I think it's a little bit loose. So I might pull it apart and start again on a finer needle for it to be a little bit firmer fabric. I mean, it's lovely. I've got the idea of how it's working out. And of course, I try to be different. I like to have a nice slip stitch edge. So I had to add the extra 2 stitches onto the pattern, and then I was getting myself confused trying to follow the instructions. I think virtually everybody in the class had to pull it apart at least once with what they were doing, because when you've got the first colour change, yeah, I managed to confuse myself, but I'm good at doing that. But what I'm doing in Urth Yarns. Now, in the last episode, I had the zebra stripe socks. That's by Urth Yarns as well. This is a solid one. I think they call that one in the Harvest range. And this is one of their multicoloured ones. Now, it only looks purple and green there, but there's actually lots of other colours in it. This is it when it's in the hank before it's put into a ball. So these are all the different colours that are going to come out into it for me. I thought I was going to be clever and try and knit from stash. And so I thought I bought one of these off Joy at Capital Fibre Fest last year. And I thought, oh, well, I'll just buy another one of those because the pattern calls for 2 of the main colour, which has got to be a multicoloured one, and then 1 solid colour. And so I thought, well, that's okay. I will grab 1 other solid colour from my stash, and I will then buy another one to match this that I bought. So therefore, technically, I'm buying 1 skein and using 2 from stash. I thought, well, that's good. I mean, I'm using up yarn. This solid colour was not in my stash. I ended up buying it in the traders hall because I just kind of liked it and thought it would go really, really well, more than what I had. So what I thought was going to be a good stash busting project, because it's going to use 3 skeins, of which only 1 was from stash. So I suppose at least something is coming from stash for this project when I get cracking on with it. So when the Nordic Stars scarf is done and when the cuffs are done, I'll be able to sit back and I'll make a firm decision on, I might pull that apart altogether and start again with a finer needle to make the fabric a little bit firmer. And then I'll plough through with that. Because it's 3 100-gram skeins of yarn, I think I'm going to use about 1.5 of the main colour. I'll have yarn left over, but you know, that's 300 grams of yarn. That's going to be a fair bit of knitting, so there'll be at least a month of me knitting, I suppose, to get through all that, if not longer. But yeah, so that was the second workshop, and so it was good. I didn't really want to do it to support Joy, but so it was good that it was a sellout for the workshop, and I know that the dyeing workshop was really popular, so they ended up repeating it as well. So yeah, there was just one of that one there. Now, speaking of the Traders Hall, there was a Traders Hall there. There were, I think, about 15 traders, which is a little bit less than normal. Again, they were doing sort of like an easy as we go event this time, and so not so many traders were there as normal. I meant to do a walkthrough and take photographs and a video because I thought I could do that after I finished my workshop on the Sunday afternoon, but by the time the workshop finished, it was the end of the day and everybody packed up, so I missed out on the chance to photograph it. But I'll in the notes I'll put a list of who all the traders were, and so I thought it'd be really good, and I was trying to resist temptation. I kind of thought I don't need to buy any yarn, but I do want to support people, so what I'll do is I'll just look for books to buy this time. Well, and that's what I did. So one stall was just selling books, and I finally got tempted to buy the 52 Weeks of Scarves. Well, it's scarves and shawls as well. It's the soft cover version. So I'd seen the hardcover one and I was really quite tempted last year, but it was quite expensive being a hardcover, and the soft cover was only $38. So I kind of thought, oh, that's good. And I mean, as again, there are 52 patterns in here. I'd probably want to knit probably about 20 of them if I had a chance. And I say that, and I can honestly say I've yet to knit a shawl. I've never knitted a shawl before. Lots of scarves, lots of cowls, yet to knit a shawl. So perhaps something from here will be my first shawl. But I mean, I think a lot of people are familiar with this title anyway, and it's a whole series. There are 52 weeks of socks, and yeah. And at the same one, I got another one of these Japanese stitch Bibles. I bought one about 7 years ago, and it's just phenomenal for just looking through and salivating over. It's when I mentioned about the Selbu pattern books in the last episode, something really hit me when I first saw those Selbu patterns, and I didn't know if it was because I do have ancestry that links back to it. I certainly got no Japanese ancestry, but a lot of the patterns that were really speaking to me from this book were the cable patterns. And I've always loved cable knitting, and I suppose that links back to my Irish heritage as well. But I think these ones seem to be more complex than what you see in sorts of Aran jerseys, and they'll do rows of just so many all crammed in together, and it just makes you think, oh gosh, I could put that with something else, and I could do this, and I could do that, and it'll be another fantastic resource to add to my little yarn library that I have. And it just, because when I was a kid, Mum had one of those, 400 stitch dictionary type books, and that would show simplistic cables, or just a really simple repeat of one or two stitches, whereas these get more complex and show bigger, more impressive ranged patterns, and just gets really exciting. Yes. Will I want to do lots of things out of this? Absolutely. Will I ever? Oh gosh, I don't know. There's only so many hours in the day, isn't there? But certainly, it's a book that's going to have me. Again, I like it to the Selbu pattern books. It's just so much to delight and enjoy when you look at these books. Even if it is only just looking instead of doing anything out of it, it's well worth just doing the looking, because it's just so enjoyable. Because it just gives you the thought of what you can do with having a simple stitch pattern, but how you can take it beyond just being simple and just, giving it more pizzazz and oomph and going over the top completely. So those, and then on the Yarn Queen stall, I've always liked Pom Pom magazine, but I never really got around to buying any of them yet. And, oh, hello, that's Miss Jaffa calling again. And so I've finally bought 2 issues of Pom Pom. Now, I got this one here because I was really intrigued by the sweater that's on there for the construction. It's a top down, and it was just very, very clever. I really liked it, and I thought, wow, I would like to do that in different colours for myself, actually. So it's on the plan to do that. But when I actually then got it home and read through it, it's actually Aran weight. And I don't know if I can handle an Aran weight jersey anymore, because it just gets really, really hot. So I might take the same pattern, because there's I think it's about 12 sizes. It's really good grading on it. And I might just do some swatches, and I might just do it in DK weight yarn, double knit yarn, and just do a test swatch to see what size it will be, and do the calculation and possibly knit it up. Yeah, so I bought that book just for that pattern, because it really struck out. There's some other nice ones in here as well, but that's what got me going with that one there. And the other one I got was, they're both from last year. This one here, that pattern really I thought was exciting too. Now I think it's too short. I think it needs to have an extra repeat on it, because it will come up to my belly button, and no one wants to see the space between my belly button and my jeans, top of my jeans. So if I do it, I'll have to make it longer, but I'll see how many rows are in the pattern repeat. But yeah, I think it's a great, almost like a Harlequin type pattern. I think it's quite clever. And the 2 colourways they show are quite exciting. So I'm tempted to do that for myself, but again, I'd have to modify it again. And just on the other side of it, because this one is those ones where you can reverse it, I thought something really cute and funny, if I can finally find it again. A knitted 2-piece, like a pants and a t-shirt and a cable, all over cable. I don't know if I want a 2-piece, but I'm actually keen to play around and knit myself a pair of cabled shorts. Now, I don't imagine a cabled pair of shorts will actually last terribly well. And I think you might need to actually use a type of cotton yarn as opposed to wool for it to keep its shape a little bit better. But yeah, I thought I was at a bit of close up there. Whoops. Again, one of those projects I want to do. It's a matter of when will I ever have the time to do it, but it's a bit of fun. And I just thought the cover photograph was just so joyful as well, throwing up skeins of yarn into the air to catch and stuff. It was a brilliant photo, very, very tempting. Now, as I said, I was just going to buy books to support people, but as I showed you with the shawl for the butterfly shawl, I bought yarn and I put into it. Now, the harvest yarn that I was showing before from Urth Yarns with Salted Colours, I also bought a green. So I'm always a sucker for green yarn. So this was the green, and I was going to pair it with the harvest wheat type one, but instead I used it for that project. So this will be all by its lonesome. So I'm not sure what I'll do with this, but it might be just a really nice cabled pair of socks. I might find one of the really nice cables from the Japanese Stitch Bible and use that as the top part of the sock and do a plain foot, and that'd be quite nice because that nice solid colour will show off a stitch pattern nicely that's a cable. So I bought that. Came across Mama Wooling for the first time, and it was nice to have a little chat to her. Now, I've told you before that I'm a sucker for buying things for different reasons. Now this is lovely. A nice cream base with all these flecks coming through it. The colourway was called Hygge, and with my Scandinavian ancestry, Hygge, I just had to buy it because of the name. It's lovely. This one is merino and 15% nylon. Well, 85% merino, 15% nylon. But it's very, very soft to the touch. So the nylon component, it doesn't feel as much as you do with other ones. So I don't know what I'll use this for. This might even just be a nice cowl or something around the neck because it feels so good. It feels almost too good to be used for socks. That's a daring thing to say. But that was lovely. And we were having a debate as to how you pronounce Hygge, but I was always taught it was Hygge, not Higgy, like some people say. But that's different languages for you. And there's also regional ways of pronouncing it as well, so it's all the same. And then also from Mama Wooling, I also got this one here. This was also in the same range, so it's the merino nylon mix. This one was called Camo, obviously short for camouflage. And like, what do I keep saying? I like the greens. I'm always a sucker for the greens. So I'm not sure if I would pair those two together for anything, but who knows? It might be nice to keep them together. And then Dye Stock Yarns. I hadn't come across Dye Stock Yarns before either. And she had this little tempting sign that said $5 off your first purchase. Bend that rubber arm of mine. So I bought this one here. This is a merino 4-ply. So it's 100% merino. And they call this colourway Baroque, which you can see all those faded colours, which are, yeah, really nice. Didn't buy it with a pattern in mind. I've got no idea what I'm going to use it for. I'm just loving the look of it. And as I say, that sign said $5 off. My Scots background said, in for a bargain, in for a bargain. So I got that done. So that was the purchases, all my acquisitions. Miss Jaffa hasn't been well lately. She's got a few little health issues we're trying to work through at the moment. But she's been her usual cuddly self lately. And here are a few photographs of her showing everyone who's the boss. And just for a little light relief, here are some of the funny memes I've been chortling away at over the last few weeks. Thank you for joining me and Miss Jaffa for this episode. Hope you enjoyed it. If you liked it, hit the like button. If you want to subscribe, by all means hit that subscribe button, and then hit that bell button for notifications so you'll be informed the next time an episode goes live. That's pretty much all we have for today. So in the meantime, enjoy your crafting, enjoy what you do, and mā te wā till next time.